This episode is brought to you by Progressive Commercial Insurance. Trucking is a big job, so Progressive is proud to offer truckers the coverage they need and discounts to help them save. Quote truck insurance in as little as 8 minutes at progressivecommercial.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Discounts not available in all states or situations.
Sports Social Podcast Network, the biggest voices in sport. Let's take a look at some of the lineup, tops and tails.
And he goes, all right, mate, do you want the darts and thing? And I'm like, what darts?
The Anfield Wrap.
Off the field, Liverpool have done everything they possibly could to achieve dominance now.
The Analyst Inside Cricket.
It was announced over the PA system that I was out of the test for injury. A massive cheer went up around the ground. Probably the biggest cheer I've got in the UK.
All on Europe's biggest sport podcast network. Find your next favourite sport podcast. Search Sports Social Podcast Network and listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Sports Social Podcast Network.
Verified comparison at content.sport-social.co.uk/comparison. Find the biggest voices in sport on the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Like the Fantasy Football Scout podcast. If you want to win at FPL and dominate your mini leagues this season, then make sure you subscribe to the Fantasy Football Scout podcast. You'll get all the tips, stats, picks, and elite transfer knowledge from some of the very best in the game. Just search Fantasy Football Scout wherever you get your podcasts.
Sports Social Podcast Network.
Welcome to Away the Podcast. It's Martin here, and you join us today for our Sunday supplement show, where we're taking a look back at yesterday's excellent 2-0 win over Wolves at Stadium of Light, a result that leaves us in 7th place with 14 points from the first 8 games. It was a big day for Sunderland as a city, really, with the opening of Régis Le Bris, and as anybody who listened to the reaction pod yesterday will know, our first guest took the opportunity for an extra pint or two in town before the game. It's Gav Henderson. Hello, Gav.
Hello, mate. Yes, I did. I think probably drank a bit too much yesterday, but that's what happens when bridges open in Sunderland. You just see the need to maybe take advantage of it. No, it was a really, really good day. I think my bank balance is going to cry every match day now that I'm disappearing off into town, but so convenient, man. I couldn't believe it. I was thinking it might take 10, 15 minutes to get across. It might be busy. Oh, no, 6 minutes if you walk briskly from the pub to the turnstile. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be good. I'm quite enjoying this. So even when it's a bad day, you can scamper off to the pub pretty quickly.
It could be good or it could be dangerous, couldn't it?
Yeah.
Also joining us today is a man whose voice is familiar across the Northeast. BBC Radio Newcastle's Total Sport presenter Simon Pryde. And Simon, looking at your social media, you had a very memorable day at the match yesterday.
Yeah, it was great to go. Yeah, I was in the press box, but yeah, my daughter had been wanting to go to a game for a while. She's 6 years old. By the way, she says, in the interest of full disclosure, that she supports Sunderland, Liverpool, and Newcastle. I guess that's good for a neutral sports presenter in the Northeast, at least. She was given access. She was granted access to the press box yesterday, which was great of the club to allow that. And she thoroughly enjoyed herself. And we went across the Kiel Bridge afterwards as well, because thought I'd show her that too. And it's amazing, isn't it? It makes such a difference in terms of ease of getting back into the city and the centre of the city and across the river. So it's absolutely it's absolutely brilliant. And what a great afternoon all round, really.
And Simon, before the game, we were talking about it being a huge opportunity to get 3 points. It was kind of a funny one, wasn't it? Because the home games that Sunderland have had so far this season, you've had the bounce off of going up. You've had the opening game of the season. Being in the Premier League sort of felt like a novelty because it was. We hadn't been there for such a long time. For me, this was the first game where you kind of go, okay, it gets serious now, it becomes normal. And this is now a really good chance of getting 3 points. And did it, for you to have a little bit of a different feel to it than perhaps other games have so far this season?
Probably did, yeah. I was at the Wolves game, at the West Ham game, first game of the season. And as you say, there was just that kind of euphoria of it being the first game back. And I think the team rode on the back of that a little bit. And now we're kind of, into the meat of the season. And so it probably did, again, perhaps a little bit more pressure on them as well, because, of course, with good results, expectations rise as well. So there is that level of expectation that's a natural thing to happen, isn't it? And so, and with Wolves being bottom of the league as well, I must admit, a little bit concerned going into this one, thinking they could come unstuck here, because I think Wolves, their previous 2 games, they drew them and probably could have won both of them as well. They've definitely improved. So the way that Sunderland started the game, I was very pleasantly surprised. I thought they bossed it, and got the goal that they deserved. After that, it wasn't so straightforward, was it? Wolves came into the game and I think Sunderland defended their box really, really well. And, the keeper, when he was called upon, made a couple of good saves. And so, they found a way to go on and win it, which is a hugely impressive thing to do. And to, keep picking up points at home like this, I mean, that's going to guarantee a Premier League safety sooner rather than later if they're carrying like this. And, hopefully something beyond that even. I mean, I don't think any other team has won more points at home so far this season in the Premier League, which is phenomenal. The atmosphere obviously helps. It's a great atmosphere again. Everyone behind them, even when at 1-0 up, they were maybe giving the ball away a bit too much, and people were getting a little bit frustrated at times, but that soon translated back into let's get behind them again. And then when the second goal went in, everyone was just able to heave a sigh of relief, and 3 more points in the bag. It's fantastic.
It's a big 3 points, isn't it, Gav? If we go back to earlier in the week, you and I did a pod with Ant and Bomber, and we were talking about Siddiqui probably being injured for however long. News came out that Alderete was doubtful with an injury that he picked up in national duty as well. So when the teams were announced, it was quite a pleasant surprise to see both of those in the side. I thought Siddiqui, actually, when I did the predicted team lineup for the website, I thought both of them would play. But it was a nice surprise to see both of them in the side. But there's probably a few surprise selections further up the pitch. What do you think of the side that we picked?
I think there was probably a bit of reflection on the Man U game, and from an attacking perspective, the fact that in that first 30 or so minutes, it didn't really click. So I think, especially down the left, we saw Lafay come back in, and I think he's actually, even though that's not probably his favourite place to play on the pitch, I think since the season started, he's probably been our best wide player. So, you can understand it, and it gave us a greater amount of protection down that side as well, as something which we didn't really get when we had Masuaku and Adingra there at Old Trafford. So I think it was just Le Bris reverting to something which he knows works. But actually, I was a little bit surprised to see Traore start again, even though before the game I actually talked about how I thought he might. I had a feeling we would go with something a little bit different down the right, and it didn't really work, let's be honest. But I thought, generally speaking, that the team looked structurally very sound. I thought everything made sense. I mean, even in the pods leading up to the game, I was talking about how I would play Hume left back, I would play Mukiele right back, just to get Ballard into the team and to give us that little bit more solidity at the back as well on that left-hand side. And to be honest, I'm not one of these who will sit and criticise team selections. I never, I don't look when the team comes out and go, why is he playing? Why is he playing? I actually try and put myself in the manager's shoes and think, well, there's a reason why he's done that. Why has he done that? And for me, it was just to bring a little bit more solidity to the team, which, to be honest, you've got to say it paid off. Also, and we'll get into this, I imagine, when we start talking about the game, but in the pods leading up the game, I talked about how if you analyse the results Wolves have had to this point, if they concede early, they fold. They've got a knack of doing that. So I think we had to try and score early, which we did, obviously. And I think the team selection represented it. It was going to be a side that would go and have a go at them a little bit from the off. So to me, it made perfect sense. I think that, Le Bris is very good at structuring his teams, isn't he? And right from back to front, it just made sense in the end, I think.
I think the Traore one was an interesting one, wasn't it? I think it probably kind of ties into some comments Le Bris made in the press conference about getting that second goal. because he's a player with Premier League experience who can pull off a goal out of nothing. And, you can get them on the counter and stuff like that. So I suspect that was maybe in his thinking. But something else that Le Bris had talked about in this press conference was this team's now maybe a little bit more capable of dominating the ball and dominating games in possession. Throughout his spell at Sunderland so far, we've kind of played on the counter a lot and conceded possession. And he talked about, us being capable now of controlling games at this level, which I thought was really interesting. And he kind of suggested maybe a little bit more confidence in the players he's got. And Simon, you mentioned when we talked just now about that opening spell, and I thought that first half an hour of the game, I thought we were really in control. I thought we played well. We controlled the game. We obviously scored one goal. We could have had at least one, if not two more. Were you surprised that we took that approach and tried to dominate that game? Because, as we talked about, Wolves have had a poor record so far this season. I think looking back, they haven't won since April in the Premier League. So they're under an awful lot of pressure. But, for Wolves, they'd have been looking at this as a great opportunity for themselves to get 3 points and get their season back on track. So it was a hugely important spell of the game, that opening half an hour, wasn't it?
It was, and I think you're right. Yeah, I think maybe there was a little bit of a shift. And listening to Le Bris's comments before the match, I think maybe that was something they tried to do a little bit differently. They saw Wolves as a team that maybe would be a bit lacking in confidence, bearing in mind their season so far. So go out and try and dominate the game. And as you say, I mean, there was the goal, the offside goal was only just offside. It was one of those ones that I've got used to doing that now. You kind of basically, when the ball gets played through, you've got one eye still on the assistant referee because you think it's going to flag it eventually. And so when it goes in, you can't, I can see how fans were doing that. A lot of people not celebrating because they knew that the flag was going to go up, and then it did. And then it was closer than I thought, I must admit, when I saw the replay. But that sort of set the tone. And as you say, could have had another one as well when Hume hit the post too. And I think they did dominate. I don't know what the dynamic was that sort of changed it a little bit, and Wolves got back into it. I think that was more down to Sunderland making a few mistakes in possession and giving, they were confident on the ball, but maybe, I don't know, was that overconfidence a couple of times, and they gave the ball away in dangerous areas, and that just seemed to help Wolves come back into it a bit, and Sunderland maybe reverse it to playing a little bit deeper, trying to absorb a bit more pressure, and that invited Wolves on just a little bit. And that, it's fine margins in Premier League football, isn't it? And there was a little bit of a dynamic shift there. But that said, they still defended well. And just going back to Gavin's comments about the way that the team changed at the back and the shape at the back and the positional changes at the back. We talked a lot about this on Total Sport ahead of the match. Gary Bennett was adamant that they shouldn't change the shape at the back, that Hume shouldn't switch positions, that Mukiele shouldn't go to full back, because as a defender, he always liked to have things, stable at the back. But I can see exactly why he did it. And I agree with Gavin. I think it worked as well. I think Hume did well at left back. I'm never entirely comfortable with him there, and he was doing a lot of kind of using the outside of his right foot, wasn't he, to pass it and try and cross it. But and that said, he did really well, and positionally he's sound, and and we all know sort of what a tough tackler he is as well, and that doesn't seem to matter which side he's on to do that. Mukiele very comfortable at right back, and getting Ballard back in the team was great because he played really well. Alderete as well, so individually and as a collective they all did well. So I can see exactly why, and it's easy to say after a victory, I suppose, but retrospectively you can see exactly why Régis Le Bris did what he did tactically.
I think it's going to be really interesting next week, isn't it, when Ronaldo's back available after his suspension?
Yeah.
Because I suspect he'll come in for Hume, and that'll be Le Bris's first choice back four when people are fit. But we'll obviously talk a lot more about that further on in the week. But Gav, I think 9 minutes, as Simon's alluded to, the Isidore goal, it was just offside. You see, it wasn't as offside as you kind of thought it might have been, but it was a beautiful finish. Like, I know it obviously didn't count, but it was a beautiful finish. And if he had scored, he would have been the first player since Kevin Phillips to score in 4 consecutive Premier League games at the Stadium of Light, which would have been a pretty remarkable achievement for him, given that he hasn't even started all of those games. But great finish.
Oh, an outstanding finish, yeah. I think he went for power more than placement, which is understandable given it was probably on his weaker side with his left foot. But it was actually the touch he had which set him away, which I was most impressed with. it sort of comes along, doesn't it? And he pokes it on. He wants to get into a foot race with the defender. And Isidore, to me, has really developed, I think. I was a little bit worried after getting promoted that he would struggle at this level, because I thought, there were games last season, particularly towards the end of the season, where he just wasn't in them enough in the Championship, and you worry, you're like, yeah, he's a goal scorer, but does his all-round game stand up in the Premier League? And I have to say, he's really proved us wrong. I think this season, he's more than done enough to stake his claim at the top end of the pitch. And he actually, when you think about it, he didn't have a great amount of opportunities during the game. He sort of made all of the chances that he did have himself, didn't he? There was that other one in the second half where he poked it just wide, which was similar. It was kind of latching onto a ball with a great first touch, and then it just goes wide. But Isidore made the most of that opportunity. And you're right, actually, in the moment, Martin. Obviously, I've only watched Match of the Day back this morning, so I've only just really seen it. But in that moment, at the game, I thought, oh, he's a mile off there. He wasn't. Like, he was very, very close. It was, maybe in the Championship, with the right linesman, that gets given, doesn't it? It wasn't as obvious as I thought it was. So, yeah, I'm really impressed with Isidore this season. I think he's, more importantly than anything, he's understood this is his chance. And I thought about this probably a month or so ago with him, where if it doesn't go right for him this season, he'll probably never get an opportunity to play in the Premier League again. And it's the case for a lot of these players that we've travelled up from the Championship with us. It's like, this is your time. If you don't take this opportunity, you might end up going back abroad, and you might never play at this level again. And Isidore, as the character that he is, has really, really embraced it. And it's no surprise, is it, that all of his big opportunities have came at home, because he absolutely loves playing in front of those fans. Even at the end of the game, when Wiseman Say was playing over the speakers, his arms are in the air, he's singing his heart out. He just loves playing for Sunderland, and we shouldn't take that for granted. I think a lot of people probably do. They probably don't really understand how special it is to have a player like Wilson Isidore play for your football club, who would die for Sunderland. I genuinely think that he absolutely loves it here. I think as long as we want him to stay here, he'll stay here. That's how much he loves it. And I'm just hoping he gets more and more of them chances in games, because he's certainly impressed this season so far. I think he's been a real highlight in amongst a season already of lots of highlights. Wilson Isidore's been right up there as one of the biggest.
I think he's really sort of accepted that challenge, hasn't he? And embraced the challenge that he's got. And it's interesting when you look at Isidore's season last season, because you say, Gav, that you weren't that confident about him stepping up, given the end of the season he had. But I think there was probably mitigating factors, and I think he talked himself about having some personal issues off the pitch and all that sort of thing. The Isidore that we saw between him signing and early January, or maybe February, you wouldn't have had any qualms about him stepping up into the Premier League. So it's nice to see that wasn't a flash in the pan, and he has actually been able to make a step up. And of course, you got Brian Broby sat there on the bench, a £20 million striker, and Isidore's responded to that challenge really well. And Simon, you can't see him losing his place at the moment. He's in possession of the shirt. He's playing well, scoring goals. You can't ask for any more from him, can you?
Yeah, he's grabbed his chance, hasn't he? I mean, he started the season behind Mayenda, because Mayenda started the first game, didn't he? But since then, since he's got into the starting 11, he's been, he's got his 3 goals. I could have had more as well. And as you say, it's not as though he's getting chance after chance after chance. He's because it's slimmer picking, of course it is in the Premier League. So he has to either create things himself or make the most of the opportunities that he does get. He does a heck of a lot of work off the ball as well. He's been thoroughly impressive. He's the main man now, and he's the one that the others have to kind of, both Mayenda and Broby, who probably thought when he was coming in that he would quite quickly become the first choice striker. I think Isidore has responded brilliantly to that as well, and has raised his game. I wasn't sure whether he'd be good enough in the Premier League, I have to say, but at the moment, he's absolutely proving to be. And I think the points you make about his character as well, his personality seems to be infectious. I think him behind the scenes, him and Luke O'Nien seem to be really sort of the heartbeat of the club, just in terms of the personalities that they have, and the whole kind of team bonding thing as well, and the ethos that they want to to have at the football club. So I think he's a hugely important player for a number of reasons. And if he keeps playing like he is as well, and keeps getting goals. I mean, if he can get 10 or more goals this season, I think you would class that as certainly a successful season, and he's well on the way to doing that. So I've been nothing but impressed by him, and the fact that he's such a jaunty character as well. I'm desperate to try and get him in the studio actually as a studio guest for Total Sport. So I'm working on that because I think he'd be brilliant as well in that respect. So yeah, nothing but impressed by Wilson Isidore.
16 minutes, we got the lead, Gav, and it was a goal from an unexpected source. I think if he'd had a tenner on him at the bookies, he would have had a nice night out last night. But yeah, Nordi Mukiele getting his first goal for the club, and it was quite a strange position to find himself in. But obviously, taking a long throw in from the left-hand side just prior to that, hadn't he? But it just shows what a good football player he is to be able to do that. Everything he did in the build-up, played a nice 1-2 with Hume, got in. And you can maybe raise questions about the goalkeeper in his part in the goal, but I actually don't think the goalkeeper could have done that much. I think it was such a close range, tight finish, but we took it really well, and it was nice to get that early goal because it's been something that we probably haven't done enough of in home games is get that early lead. And I think is it the first goal that we scored in the North Stand since Mundell scored against Preston? Yes. I think it is. So you're going back to February since we've actually scored in the North End, so North Stand. So it was nice to get an early goal and to get a goal kicking that way.
It was, and you kind of took the words out of my mouth there when you said that it shows how good he is as a footballer, because we heard all about. No, I'd never even heard of the guy before he signed for us, and then you read into him and you look at him up and you see that he can play virtually every position on the pitch and has that ability to just switch during games because he's got a bit of everything about him. So you shouldn't really be surprised that he's then popping up on the left-hand side of the box and playing 1-2s in scoring positions. I suspect that when he was younger, Nordi Mukiele probably was an attacking player and he probably just dropped further and further back as he's became more of a senior footballer, as he maybe went through his youth career as he was 16, 17, 18, maybe then became a midfield player and then a defender. But he's got that in his locker because he's such a good footballer, and you're totally right. And I think it kind of lends to this idea that we've got so many adaptable players. We talked a little bit about it on the reaction pod when I was talking to Johnny after the game and Sam about we seem to have just assembled a squad of these players who can fit in wherever you want them to. And you probably don't realise how handy that is until you get a moment like that where Mukiele's on the wrong side of the pitch technically because he's had to go over and take a throw in. But then a move's opened up. Wolves are not prepared, certainly on that side of the pitch, have not been prepared to deal with Nordi Mukiele popping up there, and nobody is tracking him, and he just kind of ghosts into a position, and then with the shot on, all he can do is take his opportunity. And again, I agree with you about the goalkeeper. I don't think it's poor goalkeeping because I think the goalkeeper has to make himself big. It's all he can do. What else is he supposed to do? He can't stay rooted to his line. He's got to become big. And when you make yourself big, you open your legs, and that's the risk you take. The ball can go through there. Now, you could try that another 5 or 6 times, and it might deflect out for a corner, or it might just, the ball might deflect into the path of the defender and they clear it. Just so happens for our sake, it ended up in the back of the net. It's not poor goalkeeping, but it is a very good goal from us. I think Trey Hume, very unselfish, spots the run of Mukiele, and importantly, and this is a key, he trusted him. So he was thinking, there's Nordi, I don't mind giving him the ball back. If that might have been Ballard or Alderete, he might not have played that pass. Do you know what I mean? I think it's about having trust in the players around you and knowing he's a good player. I don't mind giving him the ball back here. But it was very important we got an early goal, I think. You saw that afterwards, the way that the game flowed from that point. I know Wolves did then have their own spell later in the game, but in the first half, I think it kind of knocked the wind out of them, didn't it? It made sure that we asserted that dominance early in the game, and that's so important. We've been in that position loads of times in the past when we've been Wolves, we've been the struggling team, and when you concede early, you just feel like your world's come crashing down around you. Your plan's out the window. How do we react to that? You want to be in games as long as possible. And unfortunately for Wolves, we removed that opportunity pretty early in the game, I felt. And you've got to give credit to the players. Mukiele has been fantastic since he arrived. And I don't think that'll be the last time we see him score a goal. I think he's got a sort of 3 or 4 goal a season in him, I think, at least, because he's going to pop up in all kinds of areas. He'll probably score a couple of headers too. He might even rake one in from 15, 20 yards. He's that capable, isn't he? But a really pleasing goal. A different kind of goal to any that we've really scored this season, isn't it?
It is. And Simon, from that point on in the first half, from my position, we Sunderland kind of dominated the game. We had the Hume header that hit the post, that an inch the other way, and that's 2-0. We had a couple of other chances as well to get strikes on goal, but I actually thought we managed the game really well. Listening to the Wolves manager after the game, he said he thought the first half was awful. He said it was stop-start. It was a really poor game of football. No team really could get into the flow of things. And I thought I'd been watching a different game to him, because I thought in the first half we dominated and just didn't let them really play. How do you see it from your neutral broadcaster point of view?
Yeah, I think certainly the first half hour, I think, Sunderland were the better team. I felt like they were bossing it and they'd scored, and they could have scored again if they had scored again. You couldn't have seen any way back for Wolves, really, could you? I think there were signs towards the end of the first half. I think, and as I mentioned earlier, that was more down, rather than Wolves kind of stamping their authority back on the game, that was more down to Sunderland making a few sloppy mistakes in possession, sometimes in dangerous areas, and almost kind of letting Wolves back into it, which I think then gave them a little bit of a glimmer of hope. And then the second half, they did play a lot better, and Sunderland had a bit of defending to do. But overall, I think the way that they started the game and the way that they were able to impose themselves on a team that probably won't finish bottom of the Premier League this season. I was speaking to a Wolves fan afterwards who was already condemning and saying that we're going down. I think that's just kind of football fans for you, isn't it? I mean, I guess from their perspective, to be bottom of the league and to losing to one of the newly promoted teams, they're a bit down on themselves. But I think Wolves, they've got some good players. I think they'll probably rise up from that position. I think they'll hopefully stick with the manager. I think he's a decent manager. Despite his post-match comments there, which I agree with you. You get that from managers sometimes, don't you? It seems like they've seen things from a slightly different perspective, to put it politely. But I think, to Sunderland's credit, the way that they started the game and the way that they did try to perhaps dominate the ball a bit more than they have done in other games, that worked early on. They're going to have to work on kind of doing that for longer periods of the game. It's going to be very different at Chelsea. They're going to have to play things very differently. They're going to have to expect to have not very much of the ball at all. And I think we can, it's almost going to be kind of more of a sort of 4-5-1 and hoping to play on the counter against Chelsea. Probably that's what it'll sort of end up like, I think. But I think, I think Régis Le Bris has really shown and demonstrated his adaptability. He's got a kind of core philosophy, and there are consistencies that we see game in, game out. But he's also very able to make those adaptations necessary for different circumstances. And I think certainly in the first half in particular, we saw that against Wolves, so it was impressive.
It was, and that's the perfect time for us to take a short break. We'll be back very soon.
Once upon a mundane morning, Barb's day got busy without warning. A realtor in need of an open house sign. No, 50 of them, and designed before 9.
My head hurts.
Any mighty tools to help with his plight? Aha! Barb made her move. She opened Canva and got in the groove.
Bulk creating Canva sheets. Create 50 signs fit for suburban streets.
Done in a click, all complete.
Sweet!
Now, imagine what your dreams can become when you put imagination to work at canva.com.
Wherever Bud goes, his harmonica goes with him. It's a pocket full of soul. Now he's living with prostate cancer. He asked his doctor about Xtandi and enzalutamide. Xtandi 40 milligram tablets treats men with prostate cancer that has spread to other parts of the body and responds to a medical or surgical treatment to lower testosterone. Xtandi may cause serious side effects: seizure, a brain condition called PRESS, allergic reactions, heart disease that can lead to death, falls and bone fractures, swallowing problems, or choking that can lead to death. Stop Xtandi and get medical help at once if your face, tongue, lip, or throat start swelling. Tell your doctor at once if you faint, have a seizure, quickly worsening headache, decreased alertness, confusion, vision problems, chest pain or discomfort, discomfort, or shortness of breath. Xtandi can cause harm to an unborn baby or miscarriage. Use birth control during and 3 months after Xtandi. Common side effects include muscle and joint pain, feeling unusually tired, hot flashes, constipation, less appetite, diarrhea, high blood pressure, bleeding, falls, fractures, and headache. Talk to your doctor and visit Xtandi.com.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Commercial Insurance. Trucking is a big job, so Progressive is proud to offer truckers the coverage they need and discounts to help them save. Quote truck insurance in as little as 8 minutes at progressivecommercial.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Discounts not available in all states or situations.
Welcome back to How Are the Podcast, and you join us for our Sunday supplement, and we are about to go into the first half. Now, Gav, I was listening to you and Sam and Johnny in the pub after the game, and I don't know if it was alcohol-induced or not, but you said you were so confident in the second half, we were really comfortable, you just couldn't see anything more than a routine win. I thought the first and second halves were two completely different games. I thought we actually played not as good at all as we did in the first half. I thought we were under an awful lot of pressure. I actually don't think it was kind of deliberate that we allowed ourselves to be penned back a little bit and trying to catch them on the break. And I thought there was a marked difference between our first half performance and second half, and I was not confident at all. I was making some notes during the game. After about 65 minutes, I'd written, I just hope we get a point, because I could see them scoring. And I just thought, if they get one, who knows what happens. And, I actually thought we maybe should have made a change at half time. Simon's alluded to in the first half, some of the things that went wrong were from our own making. I think Chris Rigg gave the ball away on 2 or 3 occasions. I think he probably, by his own admittance, you'll see, didn't have his best game. He worked incredibly hard off the ball. Traore wasn't really getting into the game too much. And second half I thought was a completely different story. But you were confident. You were comfortable.
Yeah, I was confident in the defending more than anything. I would agree with everything you've just said there. We didn't look after the ball well enough. There were a couple of culprits really who kept giving it away in dangerous positions. My confidence came from that back five and the goalkeeper. I think that's a real strength of ours, that even when we're not playing particularly well and we're conceding possession, we don't really look like we're going to flap. We look pretty strong. I mean, there was moments in that Man U game, if you look at the first goal in particular, where we did switch off. I'm not saying we're not going to switch off at times this season, because we will. But I think more than anything, when Wolves were getting into dangerous positions, Ballard and Alderete in particular were just swatting everything away. I think Wolves, I was looking before at the statistics from the game. Wolves' XG was just higher than Sunderland's, but if you look at the actual shots and stuff, they had 16 shots, but only 3 on target. So it wasn't like we were having our goal pummeled. It wasn't like it was cross after cross going into the box and we were conceding loads of corners. It probably describes perfectly why Wolves are in trouble, because they've got good players. They've got capable players, but they're not clicking. There's some reason why they're not clicking. They've got a 50-odd million pound centre forward up top, and they're not creating opportunities for him. So something isn't working for Wolves, and that's for them to figure out. But for us as a team trying to defend, it made it quite straightforward, I think. And we're going to have periods in games where we don't play particularly well. If your goalkeeper and your defence can be reliable, it takes a lot of heat off the performance, doesn't it? And eventually you'll ride through those spells in games and you'll come out the other end. I mean, after we'd rode through that period, we make a couple of changes, and we'll get onto this obviously, but we make a couple of changes, and you watch that second goal back, but it came, we piled about 4 or 5 bodies forward, so we were still dangerous even though we weren't playing particularly well. So yeah, that's where my confidence came from, on top of the fact that it was Wolves and there's a reason the bottom of the table. I just think, we're going to play against a lot of quality footballers this season. We talked earlier about West Ham. In that West Ham game, they had Bowen and Paquetá on the pitch, and yet we didn't give them too many opportunities because ultimately we were quite solid. So I'm it's a confidence that's been bred over the sort of course of the first 7, 8, 9 performances, to be honest, Martin. It's just a case this defence is very, very good and will take a lot of pressure off us.
And Simon, the defence is very good. I think it's a team that enjoys defending, which I think is probably a little bit unusual in today's Premier League, especially for clubs coming up in recent seasons. And, Ballard will throw himself into everything. I think he did incredibly well, and Alderete alongside him is exactly the same. And, I share Gav's thoughts in terms of that being a good setup and a good team to defend and are very capable of defending. But, you look through the second half, 2 minutes in, Gomez has a shot, a clear sight on goal. He screws it wide. And you could argue Ballard, I think it was Ballard and Alderete kind of closed him down and maybe forced him to hurry his shot a little bit, but he still had a clear sight on goal. Roofs pulls off a great save from Monetzi with about 20 minutes left. I think that was really their only proper shot on goal. That was a great volley. And then 5 minutes before the end, Couture, I think, should have scored as well. He had a clear sight of goal and he put it past the left-hand post of Roofs. So it was a bit of a combination of bad finishing and good defending, you'd potentially argue, in that second half.
It was, yeah, and good goalkeeping. I mean, he made one other save with his legs as well, didn't he, Roofs? But I
yes,
think
he did, yeah.
I certainly think that, going sort of rewinding right back to the comments about Rig, I agree. He's still learning his trade at the top level. He will be a good Premier League player. I've no doubt about that, but got caught out a couple of times yesterday. Massive learning experience for him each game, I think, and I think he'll come back better for it. And I think Le Bris will continue to trust him. Traore gave the ball away a few times as well, didn't he? And he was taken off just after one mistake, which led to a decent Wolves chance. And I think, so Régis Le Bris wasn't frightened to make those changes. I think he felt that he needed to. I often feel, when it's, and I must admit, I felt that Wolves were going to score at that point. I felt that the pressure was enough that, eventually Sunderland can't keep on like this. But Le Bris changed it. He, ended up with 3 centre-halves. Trouder came on. When a team is under the cosh and brings on an extra defender, I often think, really, because it's just going to invite more and more pressure on. But it made Sunderland look much more solid, I thought, and that made me more confident. And they defended even better after that, and they did look really solid as a defensive unit, which is really encouraging to see, because that's something upon which they've built the side, and that is the way that they're going to pick up points through the season. There's probably going to be away games when they're under the cosh. They're going to pick up the odd point here or there, even 3 points if they continue to defend like that. If they can retain the ball a little bit better, and I think when he's a few weeks away yet, isn't he, Diarra? But when he comes back, that'll certainly make a difference. Siddiqui probably wasn't his best game either for Sunderland, was it? But I think they've got the players that will be able to kind of keep the ball a little bit better, and they're learning all the time. They can only improve in that sense. But defensively, they're spot on. You wouldn't, you wouldn't really look around at the Premier League clubs and think, well, I'd rather swap him. I'd rather swap him in. Because the way that they've been defending has been absolutely brilliant, and long may that continue.
The second half changed, I think, a little bit after about now when Talby came on. Now, interestingly, he was going to come on for Rig, and Traore made those 2 mistakes, and they changed it, which might kind of explain why Talby went over on the left and Lafayette came inside and Rig came outside as well, because we were going to kind of have that little bit of a reshuffle with Traore going off. With Rig going off and then Traore did. But I thought Talby has looked excellent coming on from that left-hand side in recent weeks. And even if you look at his spell on the pitch yesterday, he carried the ball up that line. He got us out of trouble a couple of times because he took the pressure off. He put a lovely ball over to Ballard, who could have scored at the back post in the second half. And then obviously he played his part in the own goal that we got to eventually seal a win. But Gav, Talby has been a real bright spot over the past few weeks. I think he's really started to kind of come into his own. We're seeing the player that obviously the scouting system had spotted last season and during the summer. I think he looks a really good player.
He does, and you've got to remember how young he is, and a lot of people were judging him on pre-season performances, which I just at the time said was ridiculous. he's actually grown and got better with each performance, each time I've seen him. And I totally agree, by the way. I think off the left-hand side is probably where you get the best value out of Talby. Because he's so, we heard all of these things about him being really quick over, long periods of the pitch where, and we saw that with the second goal. He's lightning fast, but when he's on the right-hand side of the pitch and he's predominantly right-footed, he struggles to make that count. On the left, completely different player. He looks every bit the sort of 20-odd million pound signing that you were expecting when you got him. And I think it's probably really important to note that the manager trusts him so much, and he's getting more opportunities than some of the other wide players as a result of that. I think in the Le Bris playbook, and we've seen this from Enzo Lefebvre as well, in the Le Bris playbook, you have to be able to defend as a wide player. And that's maybe why Talby and Lefebvre are getting more opportunities than other players, because he really values that ability to, when we haven't got the ball, you don't have to be screamed at to drop back into position. You just do it because you know that's your role. And Shems and Talby, I see him as a bit of a mouldable figure. Like, Le Bris clearly sees him as a bit of a project and a player that he can really work with and help adapt as he kind of develops over the next couple of seasons. And Shems and Talby's just got a bit of everything. Actually, I'm actually just waiting for that goal next, because I think he's got goals in him. He looks like the type of player who will probably spank one in from 20 or 25 yards. He's got that in him. I think we just haven't maybe seen that, and that might just be confidence and just him kind of adapting. But I think off the bench, he's been a real asset in recent games. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because Romain Mundo's return's only around the corner. We're going to have another left-sided player available. All of a sudden, you're looking at these wide options that we've got, and you're thinking, we've got some really good players in the mix here. But you just want somebody to grab the opportunity. And I think actually at the minute, it's Talby who's grabbing the opportunity probably more than others. Traoré was okay at Old Trafford. I think he did well in parts. He probably didn't have his best game yesterday, but that might then allow others to get chances. And I'm hoping with Talby that he maybe get a start out on the left soon. As much as I like Lefebvre there, I think Talby can do that defensive work as well, and you can free maybe Lefebvre up to move into the middle. And even you're looking at the makeup of the attack in the midfield. Shaka Siddiqui is that base with Lefebvre just in front, Talby on the left-hand side. The right-hand side is where the big question mark is at the minute, I think. And you're looking at Traoré, you're looking at, could a Dingra maybe go out there? Possibly. Elijah Mayenda's dying for an opportunity, and we know he can play wide right. But it's having them options. Talby has really shown his worth. And looking forward to maybe seeing him get a couple of chances on the left from the start of games.
And there was another injury time goal, Simon, that finally got the win. It's probably not one that'll make the end of season highlights reel, but Talby did really well in the build up to it, and it was just nice to play out that last bit of injury time with that second goal, and the 3 points pretty safely secured at that point.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, I mean, even after that, there was obviously going to be a bit of extra time then added on. You didn't want Wolves to score straight away afterwards, but yeah, that made everyone much more relaxed. He could enjoy the rest of the game. Just on Talby there as well. Yeah, I think I completely agree. He made a big impact when he came on. I've always quite liked him. He's had a bit of criticism. Some people saying they can't really see kind of what he brings. Well, I can. I see the qualities that Gavin sees in him, and even when he was playing on the right, and perhaps wasn't the creative force that we hoped he might have been in the first couple of games that we saw him. I still think that he showed the right ethos. I think he's really good at defensively as well. He knows what his role is. Very good at when someone lose possession, getting back to a position where he knows he needs to be in order to help defend. And yeah, I think there's every chance. I think he might have earned himself a start against Chelsea. I think possibly on the left hand side, and I think the midfield that Gavin just talked about there is something I've been thinking about as well. What he'll do against Chelsea, and I'm wondering if it's the right hand side. I'm wondering if even he would put Talby on the left and bring Lefebvre inside, and then you can even play Rig on the right hand side where he's played in the past. I think he's got the energy, and again he's learning. He didn't have his best game yesterday, but I think I think they will be looking more against Chelsea to to keep things really compact. And I think, Riggs capable of playing in a system like that and being on the right hand side and sort of tucking in a little bit when need be. I mean, it's something that I guess we'll all debate through the course of the week. But yeah, getting that going back to that own goal, it was a little bit comical. Probably felt for the lad a little bit because he'd absolutely sprinted to get back to try and cover, and then just couldn't get his feet sorted out, could he? And so it felt for him a little bit, but that was just exactly what Sunderland needed then to see out the game fairly comfortably after that.
Gav, towards the end of the game, Noah Siddiqui went down a couple of times, and he went over on his ankle again. The first time he went down and got treatment, he continued for a little while, but had to go off afterwards, didn't he?
Yeah,
it looks like the injury that he's had, and I think Le Bris had said it's an injury that he's had previously. He knows how to manage, so hopefully it's not a terribly serious one. But yeah, he's going to be one to keep an eye on, I think, during this week as we lead up to Chelsea, isn't he?
And I think Habib Diarra's Snapchat story has become something which Sunderland fans are following quite closely because he likes to give people a bit of insight into what's going on in the dressing room and stuff. And eagle-eyed viewers will have noticed that on his Snapchat story. Yes, I only saw this on Twitter actually, but someone posted it. It was a screen grab from it, and Siddiqui was sat with a big bag of ice strapped to his ankle after the game, which, to be honest, I don't think it's anything to worry about when you consider how close he was to not playing in this game. It was probably, he's just ran for, whatever it was. How many minutes was he on the pitch? 95 minutes or something? He's ran and ran for 95 minutes as he does. It was probably very sore. They probably had to give him painkillers and a bit of, a bit of looking after during the week just to get him to play in the game,
It was one of those that when you watch the replay of him going down the first time, though, he was sprinting full pelt and his ankle kind of went like that, gave way from underneath him. So whether it's a weakness there, obviously, which would be explained by his absence from his international game in midweek, or something more serious, we don't know, do we? But you'd certainly have expected him to have a bag of ice on, wouldn't you? A bag of peas. One bag of peas.
Yeah. Yeah, we're past the days of magic sponges and just rubbing a bit of water on it and going, get on with it. I think I kind of said this the other day, never been a professional athlete, so I'm in no way trying to compare, but I have gone over on my ankle quite a lot of times in my life. And when you go over on your ankle, it is weak. You are effectively, you've twisted or you've stretched some muscle and tendon in there. So if it's weak, it's weak. It's going to take time to repair. But you can kind of get round it with rest and recuperation. So let's just hope he's going to have a couple of days off now, I would imagine. And I said this the other day, Martin, I think when everything's really positive and when the team's got momentum, players with injuries, they want to play through injuries because they want to be on the pitch, they want to be a part of it. I'm not expecting Noah Siddiqui to allow this to impact him too much. On top of that, because of the Diarra injury and because I don't really think we've got anybody quite like Noah Siddiqui, if there's any hint that this maybe could end up worse than it is, we need to be very careful with him. Because I would rather he missed one game and was okay for the next month or so than potentially risk further injuring it and then being missing for longer. So, but the club know that. We know we've got some highly paid physicians, doctors, fitness coaches, and a very good manager who knows what he's doing. So I think if you see him out there on the pitch, it's because they're more than happy that he's going to be capable of doing his job. So let's just pray everything's okay. Let's hope a couple of days off should see him right.
Indeed. And in summary, Simon, I guess it's a exceptionally good 3 points against a team that Sunderland could well be competing with in that bottom third of the Premier League when everything's sort of all done and told. And it was actually a really big test, wasn't it? As we said at the start, they are a good team. They've proven that they're a good team in the Premier League over the past few seasons. They would have seen this as a game that they could really win to get the season back on track. So for us to, yes, we might have rode our luck a little bit in the second half, but for us to get through that, defend well, get the goals to win all 3 points, you can't really ask for anything more, can you?
You can't, no. And I admitted earlier that I had concerns ahead of the game, but Sunderland proved me wrong, as they've been proving a lot of people wrong through the season. So yeah, all they can do is carry on doing what they're doing and approaching each game differently, bearing in mind the opposition. And yeah, I mean, they'll go to Chelsea next week and they'll give them an absolute challenge, won't they? If they can get a point down there, that would be fantastic. And yeah, it's been mightily impressive. 14 points at this stage of the season. I think everybody would have grabbed that if they'd been offered that before the season started. It's been impressive in so many different ways. I mean, yeah, just to sum up, I mean, you talk there about Wolves maybe being a team that Sunderland might be kind of, combating in the bottom third of the Premier League come the end of the season. Well, at the moment, let's not think about the bottom third because they're not in there. If that time comes, then so be it. But I'll probably end by quoting the great Davey, who's a regular correspondent on Total Sport. Those people who have listened to a Sunderland supporter who sadly we lost earlier this year. He was diagnosed with a brain tumor and passed away earlier this year. But he's still very much remembered on the show, not least for his rallying calls. And people trying to put him down a little bit and bring him back in again when he was elated after a Sunderland victory. So he would come up with that phrase, let's get carried away. And why not get carried away now? Because, yeah, just enjoy it for what it is where Sunderland are. And who knows, maybe they can just maintain that. Get to the next international break, maybe still in the top half of the division. And then suddenly, into November, all right, yeah, we know it's a pretty tricky December that's to come as well, isn't it? Again, worry about that when it comes. But it's been absolutely fantastic so far. And everything that head coach and those players have done in this season so far has given me reason for, complete optimism for the season ahead. They're doing much better than I expected, and long may it continue, basically. Let's get carried away.
Well, indeed, I kind of err on the side of caution. But 14 points. It's more than Southampton got last season in the entirety of the season. It's the most that Sunderland have got in the Premier League since 1999-2000 season. And it's the most a promoted club's got in the first 8 games since 2018-19. So we're heading on the right track. We're in the right direction, Gav. And all of these... I just keep coming back to the fact that this is still a new team. And they're still getting to each other. They're still getting to understand how people play and what positions people take up and all that sort of stuff. And you can see the understandings being sort of formed and getting better and better and better. But, if you fast forward 5 or 6 games time, 10 games time, these understandings will be much more solidified and automatic, and people will have that stuff going on. And you just think with the results that we've got and the points that we've already accumulated, that'll give them the confidence to go and do that. They're not under vast amounts of pressure. You can go to Chelsea and it's a free hit next Saturday, isn't it? So, that's just exciting for me in terms of what we can actually do over the coming months.
Yeah. There are players as well, Martin, who we've not really seen yet. Like you mentioned earlier on, Brian Broby, £20 million centre forward, who we've barely seen kick a ball yet. So we've still got that excitement to come. Gertruida, who keeps coming on the pitch to shore us up and doing a very good job. At some point, he is going to start games and we get to see what he can do. Eliza Mayenda's barely kicked the ball this season and we know how good he is. We've not seen Luke O'Nien on the pitch yet, and I'm still desperate to see that moment when he gets that chance to step onto the pitch. It's not like a testimonial or a charity case. Luke O'Nien has certainly earned his opportunity and that will come at some point. You mentioned Talby earlier. Talby, who is only just starting to find his feet and will get opportunities and will score goals and has shown promise. Traore has barely started a game. I think he's had 2 starts since he arrived. We go on and on and on. We've got players out injured. Diarra's got to come back at some point. So we are very, very early into this season. I was just looking at the table while you were talking there, and it kind of brought it home to us. We've still got 30 games left to play. So there's a lot of football left to play, but that shouldn't be a reason to be concerned. I know people are looking at December, November time and worrying a little bit, and I'm not. I think these are really just opportunities. I think we know this is a good team. We shouldn't have our spirits dampened too much by what happened at Old Trafford. We should actually be looking at this and going, we can go to Chelsea now and really pit ourselves against them. It's not a case of going there and being bloody hell, let's just make sure we get out alive and let's hope we're not dropping into the bottom 3 by the time we play Chelsea. No, it's a case of let's go to Chelsea with this team, which we know is a good team. We've got good players. Let's see if we can beat them. And that's a great place to be. We are on the same points as Chelsea. As of right now, we're there equal, and we should be approaching the game in that manner. We should be going there to beat them, and I think that's the mentality of the group. Whether we do is a different story. I'm not saying we're going to do it, but the mentality to going into that game should be, yeah, let's go to Chelsea and let's beat them. And you've got to give credit to the football club and to the players and the manager to have put themselves in that position. Is just unbelievable. And I'm probably more like Simon, and I am getting carried away because, I've not had many, if any, moments in my, certainly as an adult, in my life as a Sunderland fan, where it's been this good. And I've been there in the past where it's been good, and those moments sometimes don't last as long as you want them to. So don't take it for granted. This is a very good team. We're in a good place. So go to places like Chelsea, and then I think we've got Arsenal to come after that. Take these teams on. We've got nothing to fear, and we've put ourselves in a really good position with 8 games gone on 14 points to be able to have that luxury. So yeah, let's get carried away. Why not? We've got a great team. Let's enjoy it for what it is.
No, 100%. We have to enjoy it and enjoy this fantastic period of football. Final word on the match, Simon. Man of the match, you've got a few contenders. I think Ballard came in, did fantastically well. Alderete defended magnificently. Mukiele obviously played really well and got the goal. He had excellent performance, I think, from Enzo Lefebvre, did a great job. Granit Xhaka, I think he probably had an understated performance, but he was superb. And there was a point at the very end of the game where Mayenda made that run.
Yeah.
And Xhaka kept up with him and was actually ahead of him to receive the ball. And the look he gave to Mayenda was brilliant because he just bust his lungs to get up there. But there was a few good performances. I wonder who would get your man of the match, Simon?
Yeah, you were listing them there. I thought, I wonder if you're going to mention the fella that I would say. He's been brilliant all season. He's been a fantastic signing, and it would be Xhaka for me, yeah. And despite the fact that the defence was brilliant, I think, individually and collectively, it's just something about, Xhaka and his organisational skills. I've spent quite a lot of time watching him in games, and just he knows exactly what to do. He was helping Rig throughout as well. And yeah, as you say, there was that moment there at the end when he was looking to break forward. He had that shot as well, didn't he? That absolutely smashed into one of their defenders. I think that was going in the top corner, wasn't it? I think he thought so as well, judging by his reaction. And if that had flown in, he would definitely be man of the match. But I would still give it to Granit Xhaka. He's really bought into it. He wanted to come to Sunderland. He wanted to. He's sometimes you get players at that stage of a stellar career that are maybe just seeing out their careers. Not Granit Xhaka. He wants to make an impact with Sunderland. And yeah, he's quite a character. He's part of the sort of very fabric of the club now at a very early stage in his career at Sunderland. He's already, just so influential, so important. And I thought he was brilliant yesterday. So I would say him definitely.
Who get your vote, Gav?
For me, it's Nordi Mukiele. Granit Xhaka does run him close, but a few points which I've kind of already addressed on Mukiele. I would say the fact that he's played centre half all season, and then we ask him to go right back, and he just does it so easily, is unbelievable to be able to do that at Premier League level. He gets a goal. He was just brilliant throughout. For me, it would be him, but to be honest, it could have been Xhaka, it could have been Ballard, could have been Alderete. I thought Trey Hume had a good game. He got himself an assist, and again, a bit like Mukiele, went to a different position and did very well there. So there were a few contenders. I think, to be honest, this was one of them games where collectively as a unit, it was a great performance. There weren't really many standouts. But I'm going to go with Nordi, and I would put Granit Xhaka probably a close second with Dan Ballard in third. I mean, just a word on Ballard because we've not really mentioned him, but what another really spirited performance from him. I watched him in midweek play for Northern Ireland against Germany, and he was the best player on the pitch in that game. And it gave me quite a lot of hope for this one. I thought he's got to get him on the pitch somehow. And I'm glad we found a way, because I think you're probably only looking at Ballard losing his place from this point if he gets injured, because he's just so good. So yeah, I would say Nordi, Xhaka, Ballard in that order.
Excellent. And Gav, you and I spoke with Bomber and Ant on Tuesday in the Q&A pod, and we were asked what would be a good points return out of the 4 games that we've got before the next international break. Now, those games were obviously Wolves at home, Chelsea away, Everton at home, Arsenal at home. You and I said 4 points. Do you want to reevaluate that? Are you sticking with 4?
Oh, come on, man. Let's get carried away. Well, having just said what I just said about Chelsea, I would like to revise it, Martin. Yes, I would. I think we get a point next week. I think we go to Stamford Bridge and we've. I don't know if you've watched much of Chelsea this season. They're a very in and out team. They've got so much quality, but they are capable of having a bad game. And against a team like us who are so organised and spirited and are coming into it with confidence, I wouldn't be at all shocked if we go get a point from that one. And I mean, the home form this season's been ridiculous. Everton aren't going to really relish coming to Sunderland, and that one's going to have a bit of heat around it because it's the return of Jordan Pickford, and more importantly, it's the return of David Moyes, isn't it? So I think in the stadium, the atmosphere is going to be quite interesting. And I just think that we've become a team who are very difficult to play at home. So I would probably be looking at them too as a possible 4 points. And then you look at Arsenal. I mean, that's going to be tough, isn't it? But I'll leave that one for now. I'm going to say another 4 points out of those 3. So yes, I am revising my prediction.
Excellent. Well, we'll be sitting pretty by the next international break if that comes off, won't we? I think that's a very, very good place to leave it for today. So thank you, Gav.
No worries, mate. Thank you very much.
And thank you very much, Simon, for joining us on this Sunday morning.
No worries at all. Can I just say before I go as well, this isn't a Chelsea shirt that I'm wearing. Can you work out what shirt it is? You'll never get it. You'll never get one.
Bosnia. Is it Bosnia?
It is. How did you get that? Can you see the badge? Can you? Can you make out the badge?
No, I just kind of recognise it for some reason.
That's knowledge.
I don't know why.
That's good knowledge. Just picked it up went on holiday there ages ago and picked it up then. So I suddenly thought, it looks a bit like a Chelsea shirt. So I'd better make that clear. But thanks very much. Thoroughly enjoyed it, fellas.
Excellent. And we will be back tomorrow with another episode of On This Week, which includes a brilliant first-hand account from Kelvin about the European Cup Winners' Cup tie against Sporting Lisbon in 1973. And we'll follow that up with a Q&A pod on Tuesday, and then we'll be building up to that Chelsea game on Saturday. Yeah, if you've got any questions for the Q&A pod that you'd like us to answer, drop us a line at rokerreport@yahoo.co.uk. But until tomorrow, it's goodbye from us.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Find the biggest voices in sport on the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Like me, Hugh Ware. Yes, that really is my name. From the Tops and Tails Darts podcast, talking with all the biggest names from the sport of darts. So what are you waiting for? Search for the Tops and Tails Darts podcast and listen wherever you get your podcasts from. See you there.
Sports Social Podcast Network.